At 91 years old, there is something I finally understand that most people spend their entire lives believing, and the truth is uncomfortable. Because the lie that shaped my life for more than 50 years is quietly shaping yours too. For most of my life, I believed I was doing everything right. I worked hard, I took care of my family, I put everyone else's needs before my own. I believed sacrifice was the price of love, and that happiness was something you earned after your responsibilities were finished. So I waited. I waited through my 30s, through my 40s, through my 50s, always telling myself the same thing. Later. Later, I will rest. Later, I will enjoy life. Later, I will think about myself. But there is something dangerous about the word later, because later has a quiet habit of turning into decades. By the time I finally understood the mistake I had been making, I was already 81 years old. 10 years too late to change many things. 10 years too late to experience moments that will never come back. And the hardest part wasn't realizing the mistake. The hardest part was realizing how ordinary it was. Because the lie that shaped my life isn't rare. In fact, it's the exact same lie millions of people believe every single day without questioning it. A lie that sounds responsible, a lie that sounds noble, but one that slowly pushes your own life further and further into the background until one day you wake up wondering where the years went. So how does someone spend 50 years believing a lie that feels completely normal? Why do so many people postpone their own lives without even realizing it? And what happened when, at 81 years old, I finally saw the truth? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. I'm 91 years old, and there is something I've realized 10 years too late. 10 years may not sound like much when you're young, but when you're 91, 10 years is not just time. 10 years are conversations you never had, hugs you never gave, moments that will never exist again. And the strange part is, I thought I was doing everything right. My name doesn't really matter. What matters is that my story might sound familiar to you. For most of my life, I was what people call a good woman, responsible, reliable, always thinking about everyone else first. I grew up in a small town where life was simple and expectations were clear. You worked hard, you didn't complain, and you sacrificed for the people you loved. When I was young, I believed happiness was something you earned later. First, you worked. First, you endured. First, you built a life for everyone around you. Then, someday, you would finally rest. At least, that's what I believed. I married young. My husband was a hard-working man. We didn't have much in the beginning, but we had dreams. Or at least, I thought we did. Most days were filled with responsibilities. Work, cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, making sure everyone else was comfortable. And I was proud of that. I believed sacrifice was proof of love. If something made me tired, I pushed through. If something made me sad, I ignored it. If there was something I wanted for myself, well, that could wait. There would be time later. That phrase followed me for decades. I'll do it later. I'll enjoy life later. I'll rest later. Later, later, later. Years passed faster than I expected. My children grew up. The house slowly became quieter. The routines that once filled every hour of my day began to disappear. And that's when something strange happened. For the first time in my life, I had time. Real time. No one needed lunch prepared at 6 in the morning, no school uniforms to iron, no schedules controlling every minute of my day. I remember sitting in the living room one afternoon, the house completely silent, and instead of feeling peaceful, I felt lost. I had spent so many years living for everyone else that I didn't know how to live for myself anymore. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't even know who I was without responsibilities. But even then, I still didn't understand the mistake I had made. That realization came later, much later. In fact, it came when I was 81 years old. And when the truth finally became clear, the only thought that kept echoing in my mind was this: why did it take me so long to understand something so simple? Because if I had realized it earlier, my life might have looked very different. And the worst part? I see so many people repeating the exact same mistake today without even realizing it. When I was 81 years old, something happened that forced me to see my life in a way I never had before. It wasn't a dramatic moment like in the movies. There was no sudden tragedy, no big speech, just a quiet realization that slowly settled into my chest like a weight. It started with something small. A neighbor invited me to a small gathering. Just tea, some conversation, nothing special. At first, I almost said no. For most of my life, my instinct had always been the same: stay home, stay busy, stay useful. But that afternoon, for some reason, I decided to go. And when I walked into that room, I noticed something immediately. The women there were laughing, not the polite kind of laughter people use in conversation, real laughter, the kind that comes from the stomach, the kind that makes your eyes water. Some of them were my age, some were younger. But what surprised me was how light they seemed. They talked about small trips they had taken, hobbies they had discovered, things they were learning for the first time in their 70s. One woman was learning how to paint. Another had started gardening after retiring. One of them had even taken a trip alone to another country when she turned 65. I remember smiling and nodding as they spoke, but inside I felt something strange. Not jealousy, something deeper, a quiet question forming in the back of my mind. When did they start living like this? Because I had spent most of my life waiting for the right moment, waiting until responsibilities were over, waiting until everyone else was taken care of. But listening to those women, I began to understand something uncomfortable. They hadn't waited. At some point in their lives, they had decided that their happiness also mattered, and that idea felt foreign to me. For decades, I believed that putting myself last was the right thing to do. I believed love meant sacrifice without limits. If my husband needed something, I was there. If my children needed something, I was there. If the house needed something, I handled it. But somewhere along the way, I had slowly erased myself from the picture. Not because anyone asked me to, but because I believed that was what a good woman was supposed to do. And the strange part is, no one stopped me. People get used to the version of you that always gives. They get comfortable with it. They don't question it. So year after year, I kept postponing the parts of life that belonged only to me. Trips I wanted to take, classes I wanted to try, even simple moments of rest. I told myself there would be time later, but time has a quiet way of disappearing. And one day, sitting in that room full of laughter, I realized something painful. I had spent decades mastering the art of taking care of everyone else, but I had never learned how to take care of myself. That realization followed me home that evening. I remember sitting alone at my kitchen table, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold. And for the first time in many years, I asked myself a question I had never dared to ask before. If I had allowed myself to live a little earlier, what would my life have looked like? Would I have traveled more? Would I have discovered talents I never explored? Would I have laughed more often, the way those women did that afternoon? The truth is, I'll never know, because by the time I understood the lie I had been living, I was already 81. 10 years later, at 91, that realization still stays with me. Not as bitterness, but as a quiet warning, because I see younger people today repeating the same pattern, working endlessly, postponing joy, believing that one day, in some distant future, life will finally begin. And every time I see that, I want to gently shake them and say, be careful. The life you are postponing might be the life you never get back. After that afternoon, something inside me began to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly. When you are 81 years old, you understand something younger people rarely think about. Time no longer feels endless. Every year becomes more visible. Every season feels more precious. And that is when the truth finally became impossible for me to ignore. The lie I believed for most of my life was simple. I believed that a good life meant always putting yourself last. I believed that happiness was something selfish, something you earned only after everyone else was satisfied. So I waited. I waited through my 30s, through my 40s, through my 50s. Then my 60s came, and I told myself the same story again. Maybe later. But later is a dangerous word, because later quietly turns into decades. And by the time I reached my 70s, something became painfully clear. The world had never asked me to disappear. I had done that myself. I had slowly built a life where my own voice was always the quietest one in the room. And once you realize that, two things happen. First, there is sadness. You begin to see the years you gave away without questioning. But then something else appears: freedom. Because the moment you see the lie, you are no longer trapped by it. At 81, I started doing small things I had always postponed, walking alone in places I had never visited, reading books simply because they interested me, saying no when my heart felt tired. These may sound like small changes, but when you have spent 50 years ignoring yourself, even the smallest act of self-respect feels revolutionary. And that is why I'm telling you this now, because the truth I discovered at 81 might be something you still have time to understand much earlier. Now I am 91 years old. And when you reach this age, you start seeing life from a very different distance. The noise fades, the expectations disappear. What remains are only a few simple questions. Did you live your life, or did you only maintain it? Did you follow what truly mattered to you, or did you spend decades protecting a version of yourself that no longer existed? Most people never stop to ask those questions. They stay busy, they stay responsible, they stay useful, and one day they wake up older than they ever imagined, realizing they have been running a race that was never truly theirs. If there is one thing I want you to remember from my story, it is this: a life spent only meeting expectations is not the same as a life fully lived. Responsibilities matter, family matters, love matters, but you matter too. And the earlier you understand that, the lighter your life will feel. Because the greatest tragedy isn't failure. The greatest tragedy is reaching the end of your life and realizing you never gave yourself permission to truly live it. So now I want to ask you something, a simple question. What part of your life have you been postponing? What dream, what change, what decision have you been quietly delaying because you believe there will be time later? If my story made you think about that question, write it in the comments. Sometimes the first step toward changing your life is simply admitting the truth out loud. And if this message resonated with you, there is another story on this channel that you should watch next. It's called I'm 73. The lie I believed for 52 years is ruining your life too. Don't be me. That story explains the same trap from a different life, and it might open your eyes even more. Watch it next. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because sometimes a single story heard at the right moment can change the direction of an entire life.